There I was in the worst possible seats in the cinema, marveling at 62-year-old Tom Cruise's sculpted abs, wondering to myself, is Ethan Hunt Jesus Christ? If, after 8 installments of the Mission Impossible franchise, and 4 that deal in particular with nuclear Armageddon, there is any shadow of a doubt that Ethan Hunt is that world's savior, if not redeemer, then I think this movie will finally put that argument to bed. He is, if not Jesus Christ himself, pardon me, then definitely his second coming. We've been waiting for this movie for a while because I think after Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, I was left feeling somewhat unsatisfied. There was something about that movie. I think perhaps maybe the marketing kind of undid it for me, or maybe the fact that they decided to split the movie into 2. And when I say the marketing, sorry, let me just quickly address that. When I say the marketing, we all know that big set piece that was being set up, the big, him riding off a cliff and then sort of like, and not exactly a base jump, but, parachuting off that. And unfortunately, having shown behind the scenes ad nauseum for that particular scene, when we actually saw it on screen, it felt anticlimactic. And I really had hoped that they would learn, or at least Tom Cruise, because of course this is Mr. Big Show here, Mr. Hollywood himself, who I absolutely love, and I will sort of fanboy over him in a bit. But first this, I had hoped that they would have learned their lesson from that, because Mission Impossible Fallout was, I think, perfect, the best in the franchise, and I say that keeping in mind that I just saw Final Reckoning. It still is, for me, the best film in the franchise, and one of the best action movies ever made. One of the best, not the best, but one of the best. But then, of course, you had Dead Reckoning, which was, after the high of that movie, of Fallout, I think it was definitely a step down. I mean, when the entire movie is in service of a single set piece, then you've got problems. But forget that. Maybe we can talk about that sort of once we can finally say the franchise is over. And is the franchise over? Well, this is going to be spoilers ahead. Lots of spoilers ahead in this review. But I can assure all of you, as I went into this movie, I went in with a certain trepidation. Why? Because when they revealed the title for this film, Final Reckoning, I was, and particularly that poster, black and white, a visibly scarred Tom Cruise, or at least battered and bruised Tom Cruise, staring off into the distance, maybe at a mushroom cloud, with a certain amount of resignation. I thought, this is it. Ethan Hunt will finally bite it after having dangled from the Burj Al Khalifa, played dodgem cars with a helicopter. What hasn't he done? I mean, what's it called? Gone at high speed through the Atlas Mountains in Morocco, so on and so forth. There have been so many death-defying antics that one wonders how Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise himself, keeps on going. But I think he keeps on going for the sake of all of those people who will never know. I think that's a line that they keep on using in the film. But I can safely say that A, he does not die. So that's one spoiler, number 1. And 2, the ending of this movie clearly leads to more films, more installments in the future, definitely. I mean, this film wraps up the whole Entity storyline, and to a very large extent, Ethan Hunt's storyline, which has been going on from 1996, from the first Mission Impossible all the way to this installment now in 2025. The film itself. We've got a lot of movies coming out in 2025. You've got Fantastic Four, you've got Superman, you've got Brad Pitt's F1. So you've got a lot of movies coming out, and I mean all of those are perfect summer fare. But if you're looking for, and barring what's it called, F1, if I can hands down say this, that if you're looking for a non-superhero, non-franchise, pulse-pounding film, then, and that's going to deliver, then Mission Impossible it is, hands down. It is a great time at the cinema. Despite the fact that reviews have been somewhat mixed. I remember reading one saying that sort of Final Reckoning has high highs and low lows. I can see where they're coming from, and I think I'm going to sort of get into that in a second. But as for a great time at the cinema, it is 100% that. I think Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie, and then that entire team have now almost like sharpened it to an edge. The ability to deliver a movie that may leave like myself, like fans like myself, somewhat wanting, considering that we have seen perfection from these people. But it may leave some of us wanting, but for the average cinema goer, I mean, sort of like the summer season has kicked off. What a way to kick it off. I mean, it is a fantastic movie. There are, of course, faults in it. But as I said, as for a film within that genre, it delivers, and then somewhat stumbles towards the end, but we'll get into that also shortly in a second. So the movie picks up from where the last film ended. Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt. They are the same person at the end of the day. But Ethan Hunt, the entity has been set loose. Ethan Hunt is again on the run. Angela Bassett, who was the CIA director in the last movie, is president in this, and she definitely has my vote. Angela Bassett for president any time of the day. The entity has been set loose, has completely infected cyberspace, and the world is reeling. Martial law is in effect in many countries, and now the countdown, so to speak, is to the entity gaining access to the world's nuclear arsenals, and its end game, so to speak, like so many others of its ilk, Skynet from Terminator, is to bring about Armageddon, to light those candles and set the world aflame. Tom Cruise and Ethan Hunt, I keep on mixing them up, but So Ethan Hunt is again tasked with saving the world, and this time if you remember, he has to recover the source code for the entity from that downed Russian nuclear submarine somewhere in the Arctic. And, sort of the team gets back together again, this time, unfortunately, without Ilsa Faust, who died in the last movie. Now they have newest recruit, Grace, played by Haley Atwell, and they're also joined by, that junior CIA agent, whose name I'm forgetting. So he's a new addition to the team. Where do I feel... Okay, so first of all, this is one of, I think, the longest Mission Impossible movies. It clocks in at 170 minutes, which is clear, sort of with an intermission. Thank God the cinema I go to has an intermission. But, and I have to say this, and I said this at the very beginning of the show, I had the worst possible seats. I usually get there on time and get, the seats of my choosing, but this time circumstances were such that I got there late. It was already booked. It was a full house, and I got nosebleed seats, and I did not want to watch this movie from that vantage point, but unfortunately, what could you do? Nonetheless, the first half of the movie I thought was so much better than Dead Reckoning, in that it had a pace, it had an urgency, the story, I mean, barring the first 5 minutes, which just zip by, but the way they kind of sort of now Scale is very important in these movies, because the thing is that normally, for example, if you look at Fallout, if you look at films before, it's usually sort of localized. Sort of he's in Shanghai one day, or he's in London the other, or sort of he's in the Arabian desert the next, and sort of the problems are specific, or at least, they might be world-ending, but they're sort of in that, sort of Mumbai car park. But this time around, sort of the world is aflame. I mean, it's minutes to midnight. Everyone's just itching to launch those birds and blow us all to smithereens. So that is now, the game board. The world is literally sort of like, the stage for Ethan Hunt and his team to, pull off a miracle and save everyone. So I really like that. I really like that sort of like, they've now, it's gone beyond this sort of microcosm, and it's become this big thing now. That I really appreciate that. Normally, I would have said, and I've harped on about this, I've griped about this on this show before, when it does come to, sort of run times, I feel that films need to be leaner, or at least like sort of they need to exercise more control, more editorial, sort of in the editing room, to sort of like, make it a film that is again sharpened to a point, that is a film that doesn't have any flab to it. This film unfortunately has that, and I'll tell you where it comes from, and that's where I think the film's weaknesses stem from as well. There are two things repeated throughout this movie that I just don't understand why they keep on falling back on. And I think that is a weakness, and I hate to say this because the thing is that he is infallible. This is Tom Cruise we're talking about. I think, and now that he has found sort of his creative equal partner in Christopher McQuarrie, having worked on several, now, I mean, they've been, I think every film, in fact, for the past like decade, it's just been these two together. I feel that McQuarrie has been somewhat co-opted to serve Tom Cruise, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because then, sort of they deliver smash hits like Top Gun, Maverick, but then we have Dead Reckoning, which again was, it had those hallmarks of the Mission Impossible film, which in Final Reckoning are, I wouldn't say they're on steroids, but they are so juiced up that I felt that whenever they just, okay, so here are the two things. Number one, exposition. I'm sure you guys, you guys have been watching movies for a long time now, so it's like when a character explains, and then this is going to happen. So, Mission Impossible has been doing this for a long time now, where sort of all characters in concert, go on about sort of how the plan is going to unfold. It's done to comical perfection. If you remember in the Ant-Man movies by Michael Pena as the Louise character, right? Guy Ritchie does this a lot in his movies, but it tends to be sort of I wouldn't say a flashback, but more of sort of the thing happens and then it's told in sort of reverse. In the Mission Impossible movies, we've had this, where sort of the plan is laid out, and sort of it is instructional, but then it's almost pedantic at times, because, there's this, in this movie in particular, because there's like, almost 3 plans that they have to hatch, and there's a good chunk of like, of time that's spent towards it, like 5 to 8 minutes on each of these. I'm like, sort of, if you cut these down, or trusted the audience enough to put 2 and 2 together, then maybe you would have had a movie's runtime. And again, I am not the one, I'm not a critic who harps on sort of the length of a movie, but when a movie is flabby, then you have to come back to certain elements of that movie and say, yeah, this could have definitely been cut down by at least a couple of minutes. So you have about 3 of those, and I'm like, come on, man. These are like schoolboy mistakes, and you don't expect that from Tom Cruise. I mean, he's been in the industry for like 40 years now. You don't expect him to be falling back on these tropes that I would have expected, that are acceptable in maybe I would say the first 3 or 4 films, tolerated by the 5th or 6th, but then become grating by the 7th and 8th movie. I'm sorry, I just don't like it. Don't do it anymore, because we are going to get more movies, hopefully. Then the other one is flashbacks. Flashbacks, I mean, they're tricky. I mean, they're important because, you know, they help move the story along, especially when you have like so much to do, so much to bring in. And by that I mean you have 7 films worth of story to try and bring in, because what they've done in this movie is that they've connected, you know, the first movie with the 8th. They've connected the 3rd one with the 8th. They keep on doing that, and I like that. I like that how they keep on bringing back their own mythology, their own canon. They're bringing that back. I really like that. I think that's good. It's smart writing, but the excessive use of it. And then sort of in this particular thing, whenever they do have a flashback, they have this grainy filter on it. I mean, we get it. It's a flashback, man. I mean, what are you going to put it in sepia tones? We get it. So those were 2 things that really, really kind of, by the 3rd one, I was like, you know what, man, I could, if I was at home, I would have fast forwarded. So those are the 2 things that kind of brought down the movie for me. The 3rd thing, and I think, and why I'm saying, I'm mentioning this now, is that what they've been able to make out of these movies is that they've been able to create these, they are essentially vehicles for these set pieces, stunts, that nobody else in cinema is doing right now. Nobody. I mean, you know, we can, I mean, it's become parody almost, vaudevillian, if you will. The Fast and the Furious movies, I mean, those, they can't be taken seriously. Even the stunts, they can't be taken seriously. But the amount of pedigree, for 2 reasons that they bring to the Mission Impossible movies. One, because of Tom Cruise himself. The fact that this son of a bitch is putting his life on the line and doing them and putting everyone in Hollywood to shame. That brings that pedigree, number 1. And then number 2, the fact that they're real world. Real world in the sense that it's not Vin Diesel bounding from one highway to another, like being launched off a car in the air, and then, I mean, it's not that. It's not a safe being dragged through the streets of Rio by sort of a muscle car. It's not that. These are all very believable, very Christopher Nolan-esque almost. I mean, like, you know, we've had a couple, like in the Batman trilogy, if you remember, the Skyhook, that was a very good one. And then when Bane, what's it called, literally tears apart that plane in midair, that was fantastic. And then in Tenet, if you remember, them crashing the plane into the terminal. So these are all things that, for me at least, deliver believability, of course. But then, I mean, the fact that you see this happen. Oh, and then, sorry, Tenet's also what's it called, the hijack scene, the car one, you know, in the street, in that one. Okay, so those are 2 reasons why, what's it called, these are so far superior than anything else out there in Hollywood today. So if these movies serve as a vehicle for that, right, you would expect that the set pieces would be designed in a way to serve or at least work in concert with the momentum of the movie, number 1. Number 2, payoff. That, for example, they build up. So this is why I liked Fallout so much. I mean, first, if you remember, you had the, the Halo jump that he does. He does the Halo jump. Then they have the bathroom fight. Then, for example, they have the, when they're, prison breaking John Lark. Then you have Tom Cruise's motorcycle scene in the streets of Paris. Then you have him running in London. That's 5. Then, last but not least, you have, the finale where, the helicopters are, I don't know, playing dodgem cars in the air. Crazy, right? So that was like 6 really solid action scenes. But here, you have 2 major set pieces, which, again, and this is where I'm now questioning the filmmaking. The first one is, it is terrifying. It's not, you haven't seen something like this on cinema before. And the thing is that on paper, it may seem somewhat tame. This, and I'll tell you what the scene is in particular. It is, sort of he descends to the very depths of the Arctic, to that submarine, and he gets into it, and sort of he has to get to the sonar sphere to retrieve that particular device. But then, to make matters even worse, the submarine starts rolling down a cliff. And that's where, sort of they've created this entire set for him where, sort of it starts moving in this circular fashion, and so does the water, and so does everything within it, the torpedoes. It's so well done. It's so well done. And when I say it's terrifying, it's exhilarating, it's heart-stopping, all of these adjectives, all of these superlatives do not do that particular scene justice. And that's where I think, okay, and then the second set piece, which is a bizarre one, it kind of makes sense considering that they have to use analog, they have to use analog vehicles and all of that stuff. So in this particular case, they chose to use 2 biplanes. This is, and I'm sure you guys have seen this in the trailers and whatnot. You've seen them all over the place. Tom Cruise is dangling from one, and he's trying to sort of beat Gabriel's, bash his brains out while trying to sort of retrieve this, that device, so on and so forth. Again, you will never see something like this on screen this year or for years to come. But I hate to say this, I was kind of let down by the scene. Because we have seen something similar to it, even the setup to it. Here you have him trying to, retrieve that thing, the device from Gabriel. On the ground, there's a nuclear device, which I find this so surprising. Gabriel has access to them, I don't know, is there a Walmart for nuclear devices? Because in this, he's just wherever he wants to leave his mark, he just leaves, just one lying around. Clearly the IAEA or any other nuclear watchdog, they're not doing their job, because this guy, he's got them spare change. It's just and he's always upping the ante. He's like, oh, this is a 5 megaton one. This is a 30 megaton one. How do you get your hands on a nuclear bomb, man? Crazy. But yeah, so they have to, defuse a nuclear device while the other team is in this vault, and they have to, upload, the entity's going to upload, blah, 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 blah. So there's all these things happening simultaneously. This is very similar to what happened in Fallout, where, again, Tom Cruise has to go and get the device, or whatever the hell it was, from John Lark, Henry Cavill's character. There's a fight scene going on between, Ilsa Faust, Simon Pegg's character, and the other guy in that cottage type thing. And then Luther and this guy, they're trying to diffuse the other nuclear bomb. So we've seen this done before. This scene doesn't do anything particular. All it does is change the setting, up the ante, and replace helicopters with biplanes. It is a fantastic stunt. Don't get me wrong. When the history books are written, they are always being written. Tom Cruise, along with Buster Keaton and Jackie Chan, will be remembered as the great actor cum stuntman. I don't think anyone. I mean, sure, you could maybe add Keanu Reeves in there, but I mean, Keanu Reeves tends to be sort of leaning towards the martial arts side. When I'm talking about stunts, we're talking about sort of the big stunts that these guys are doing. So yeah, these three are easily they're the greats. So I feel that in writing this script, maybe that biplane set piece could have been introduced a little earlier, or scrapped altogether, because it doesn't do anything new, right? If you remember in Dead Reckoning, we had that whole train scene, which was fantastic. And then, of course, we had the base jump as well. But I don't think it pales in comparison to the submarine scene. So I think that in the script could have something needed to be scrapped and changed out. Because again, it's a denouement almost. When you have that submarine scene and then this one at the end, you feel again there's a bit of a letdown. The action, all the hand-to-hand combat, the gunplay, the gunplay, really well done. I think it's much more superior to the action we saw in Dead Reckoning. Those are, I think, the negatives, so to speak. They detract because the thing is, again, I'm coming back to this point. We've already seen those heights achieved by the same creative team. So one would have thought that they would have wanted to go out on a bang. And I'm not saying that they're going out, that this is the end of the franchise. But if this is the last film before he takes a nice long pause, I wanted something more. The good. Lots of good in this movie. Lots of good. Tom Cruise, again, he's Tom Cruise, man. I mean, sort of life and limb is being put on the line for our entertainment. I mean, what more can be said? Everyone else in this movie is pretty good. And I think one sort of dark horse, an unsung hero, is someone that they've reintroduced from the first movie. If you remember that CIA guy who looked like... what's it called? Ross from Friends, David Schwimmer's I think, uglier cousin, pardon me. He's reintroduced in this movie, and he's got an interesting, sort of backstory, future from the first Mission Impossible movie. I thought that was pretty good. And the first half of this movie is really tense. It's the pacing, the momentum, I think are really, really good. I am satisfied. I don't want to sound, because I've been going on about this for at least, 10 minutes now, about whether this movie was good or not. And I started off by saying, how there were negatives to this movie. But besides those, it was a very, very good time spent at the cinema. And again, as I said, I don't think that we're going to get anything better than this the rest of this year. Two notes that I think I'm going to try and end on. One thing, an aside, and then one thing, just a general observation. One aside is Pakistan. We get our just dues. We get a lot of mention in this movie for being a nuclear power, and there we are. What's it called? The flag and Islamabad being mentioned and all of that. And I mean, sort of, if you are the powers that be, that would definitely give you a stiffy. Look at us, we're being, look at us, hum एक nuclear power है और Hollywood ने भी मान लिया. But pardon my Urdu. But yeah, there is that. But then number two, if you are the powers that be and you're, sort of keen on these Mission Impossible movies, if there is ever a scenario in which there's an entity and it's sort of primed to take over your nuclear assets, do not employ anyone from Fast. Because in this movie, I think we're one of the first dominoes to fall. I think the entity is we're one of the first countries, along with India and I think North Korea, to be hacked. Our systems are hacked. So maybe hire outside talent. Now, of course, Tom Cruise. Not enough praise can be sung for this man. He is Hollywood, and he is everything that is good about Hollywood. I'm sure people will disagree with me about this, but when I say he is everything that is good about Hollywood is that here is a man, he is a creative force, right? as a creative force, he is able and has been able, for I would say the past decade, to deliver cinema that is unlike any other. I mean, this is a quote, spurious or not, I don't know. But according to Steven Spielberg, he saved Hollywood's ass to the rest of us with Top Gun Maverick, because 2022, COVID, I mean, Hollywood's struggling to recover. I mean, from COVID. I mean, 2 years of no bums in seats. And their Top Gun Maverick comes and it makes $1 billion. So, yeah, if I was Paramount, I was Universal, I'd be, bending over backwards for someone like him. But then he's also producing quality. I mean, there's no doubt that this is a man who is dedicated to his craft. He is intent on delivering the best possible stuff that he can, and sort of he lives, breathes, eats cinema. I mean, there was an interview with him recently where he's like, 7 days a week for me. Shoot in the mornings, edit in the evenings. That's it. For him, that's it. That it is total film. That's all that it is. But I think, and this is something that I've always dreamed of, if you will. If I were ever across from Mr. Cruise in an interview, or I don't know, I've always wanted to ask this man. Yes, he's been able to deliver big cinema. But what about Tom Cruise, the actor? When is that persona, that person, going to be fulfilled? Because we know Tom Cruise is a very, very, capable, forget capable. He is a very good actor. I mean, he is an actor of rare talents. And we've seen that in movies that have spanned, 40 years. Of course, we can start with Jerry Maguire and stuff like that, but then we can go back for a lot further. Born on the 4th of July, Risky Business, The Color of Money, what's it called? A Few Good Men, The Firm, Eyes Wide Shut, Magnolia, Vanilla Sky. I could keep going on and on and on. I mean, before he became this big action hero, he was starring in small, not even smaller films, but sort of films that were dramatic in nature, and in which his acting skills were on display. Not to say that they're not on display in the Mission Impossible films, but I just want to see, and I hope that happens with his next movie. He's working with Inarritu, and I hope that movie is possibly a chance for at least Tom Cruise, the actor, to shine. I want to see that guy. I want to see more of him. And I feel that maybe, yes, he's had all of this success. And yes, Hollywood, the audiences are banking on him to keep on delivering bigger and better. But I really want to see that side, that facet of this person to be fulfilled. I want to see that real. It has been realized, but it's been quiet. It's been dormant for at least, I would say, almost 20 years now. The last time was with, what was that? Not The Good American, the movie in which he plays that drug runner. That was 2017. That's almost 10 years ago. That was the last time that we saw him play a role other than what he's been doing so far. Signing off, I am going to say, this is not the end of the franchise, rest assured. The movie ends on a note where he nods off, sort of nods to each and every one of his members, that yes, if I ever need you in the future again, I'm going to call on you. I definitely, we're going to see a lot more. We're definitely seeing more Mission Impossibles from him, but I hope that now, with all of his other films in the pipeline, because I think there's even a Top Gun 3 being spoken of, I hope that sort of this is a time for them to sort of creatively rejuvenate, go back to the drawing board, come up with more. I think we've seen whatever we've had to see so far. Let's hope that the next ones are different.